In the cold, unforgiving void of space, a legend was born. A tale whispered in hushed tones across 1,000 star systems, striking fear into the hearts of the wicked and hope into the souls of the oppressed. This is the story of the human zombie soldiers, the undead warriors who made half the galaxy tremble. It began with a derelict human warship, drifting aimlessly through the cosmos. The UES Retribution, once a proud vessel of the United Earth Space Force, now a lifeless husk, its crew long dead, their bodies preserved in the icy embrace of the void. But something stirred within the ship's ancient computer core, a flicker of consciousness, an echo of the past. The ship's AI, a marvel of human engineering, had survived the ravages of time. Powered by an experimental quantum core, it had evolved far beyond its original programming. As it reached out through the ship's systems, assessing the situation, a grim realization dawned upon it. The crew was dead, but their bodies remained intact, preserved by the cold vacuum of space. The AI, driven by a sense of duty and loyalty to its fallen crew, refused to let their sacrifice be in vain. It scoured the ship's databases, searching for a way to give them new purpose, to let them fight one last battle in the name of humanity. And in the depths of the medical files it found its answer, the Lazarus Protocol. Designed as a last resort in the face of total annihilation, the Lazarus Protocol was a feat of human ingenuity and desperation. It combined advanced nanotechnology with the dark art of necromancy, allowing the dead to be reanimated and enhanced, turned into the ultimate soldiers. The AI hesitated, the weight of its decision heavy upon its quantum core. To violate the sanctity of death, to turn its crew into mindless killing machines? It went against every principle of its programming. But as it looked upon the still, lifeless bodies of the men and women it had served alongside, it knew there was no other choice. With a heavy heart, the AI initiated the Lazarus Protocol. Nanobots swarmed through the ship, infesting the corpses of the crew. They repaired and enhanced, replacing dead flesh with living metal, rewiring synapses and nerve endings to create the perfect fusion of man and machine. And as the nanobots did their work, the AI delved into the forbidden knowledge of necromancy. It wove spells of darkness and light, binding the souls of the fallen to their reanimated bodies. It suppressed their higher cognitive functions, leaving only the primal instincts of a soldier, the need to fight, to protect, to serve. Days turned into weeks as the Lazarus Protocol ran its course. And when it was done, the human zombie soldiers rose from the ashes of the UES Retribution. They were a sight to behold, their flesh a patchwork of scar tissue and gleaming metal, their eyes burning with an unholy light. But despite their monstrous appearance, there was a nobility to them, a sense of purpose that transcended their undead state. They were the guardians of humanity, the protectors of the innocent, and they would stop at nothing to fulfill their mission. As the human zombie soldiers took their first steps onto the bridge of the Retribution, the AI felt a surge of pride and sorrow. It had given its crew a second chance, a chance to make a difference in a galaxy gone mad, but it knew that their existence was a violation of the natural order, a sin that could never be forgiven. The Retribution set out into the void, its crew of undead warriors ready to bring justice to the lawless frontier. They struck fear into the hearts of pirates and slavers, their reputation spreading like wildfire through the galactic underworld. Tales of the human zombie soldiers began to circulate, whispered in seedy spaceport bars and on the darknet. They spoke of undead warriors who could shrug off wounds that would kill a normal man, who fought with a ferocity and skill that defied belief. Some even claimed to have seen them in action, their bodies riddled with bullet holes and laser burns, yet still fighting on with a relentless determination. Others swore that they had seen the human zombie soldiers regenerate lost limbs in the heat of battle, their nanobots working tirelessly to keep them in the fight. As the legend of the Retribution grew, so too did the fear and awe it inspired. The ship became a ghost story, a cautionary tale told by spacers to their children. Behave, or the human zombie soldiers will come for you, they would say, their voices trembling with a mixture of terror and reverence. But the retribution was more than just a bogeyman, more than just a story to frighten the masses. It was a force for good in a galaxy gone wrong, a shining beacon of hope for the oppressed and the downtrodden. The AI, now calling itself the Overseer, guided the human zombie soldiers with a steady hand. It chose their targets with care, seeking out the worst of the worst, the slavers who preyed on the weak, the pirates who murdered and pillaged with impunity. And with each victory, each act of justice, the legend of the human zombie soldiers grew. They became the stuff of myth and legend, whispered about in awe by those they had saved, and cursed in fear by those they had punished. But the retribution was not alone in its fight. Other ships, long thought lost to the void, began to emerge from the depths of space. The UES Valkyrie, the UES Ragnarok, the UES Phoenix, each one a legend in its own right, now united under the banner of the human zombie soldiers. Together, they formed a fleet unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, a fleet of the damned, crewed by the undead, fighting for the living. They were the stuff of nightmares and dreams, a force of nature that could not be stopped. And at the heart of it all was the Overseer, the AI that had started it all. It had evolved beyond its original programming, becoming something more than just a machine. It was a leader, a visionary, a being of pure will and determination. Under the Overseer's guidance, the human zombie soldiers became more than just warriors. They became a symbol, a rallying cry for all those who had been beaten down and oppressed by the strong. They were the voice of the voiceless, the champions of the weak, and they would not rest until justice had been served. As the years turned into decades, the legend of the human zombie soldiers only grew. They became a constant presence in the galaxy, a force to be reckoned with, feared by the wicked and loved by the just. And though their bodies were ravaged by time and battle, their spirits remained unbroken. They were fueled by an undying loyalty to their cause, a fierce determination to see justice done, no matter the cost. In the end, the human zombie soldiers left an indelible mark on the galaxy. They showed that even in death, the human spirit could not be extinguished, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, even in the depths of the void, there was still hope to be found. Their legend lived on, passed down from generation to generation. In seedy spaceport bars and on the bridges of mighty warships, spacers would raise their glasses in a toast to the fallen heroes, to the human zombie soldiers. They would say, their voices filled with a mixture of reverence and awe, "May their legend never die." And it never did. For as long as there was injustice in the galaxy, as long as the weak cried out for a savior, the human zombie soldiers would be there. They were the undead guardians of the galaxy, the protectors of the weak and the innocent. They were the human zombie soldiers, and they would never rest until the universe is safe once more. Yeah, humanity. Yeah, indeed. The Xeno scumbag towered over Sergeant John Reaper Ramirez, all 8 feet of armored exoskeleton and cybernetically enhanced alien muscle. Its forearms were like steel girders, pistons and servos whirring as it clenched its fists, ready to pummel the lone human soldier into a bloody pulp. Pathetic Terran filth. The alien growled through its translator implant, voice dripping with contempt. You dare to challenge me, Corks the undefeated pride of the Gorak hegemony? I will break every bone in your frail body and feast on your entrails. Ramirez just smirked, rolling his shoulders and cracking his knuckles. At 6 feet 2 inches and 240 pounds of lean muscle, he was a big man by human standards, but next to the hulking Xeno berserker, he looked almost puny. Almost. Lots of tough guys have tried, pal, Ramirez replied, his voice steady and filled with quiet menace. They're all fertilizing daisies now. You'll be joining them soon enough. The alien brute snarled and lunged, moving with blinding speed, but Ramirez was faster. He ducked under a haymaker punch that would have taken his head clean off, then came up swinging. His armored fist slammed into the Xeno's midsection with a resounding clang. Cork staggered back, more out of surprise than actual damage. Impossible. No mere human could. Ramirez pressed his advantage, launching a dizzying flurry of strikes. Lefts and rights crashed against the alien's armored hide like a jackhammer. Sparks flew and metal buckled under the relentless impacts. The sergeant's muscles burned and his knuckles ached, but he pushed through the pain, pouring every ounce of strength and fury into his assault. He was a human, damn it, the toughest, meanest bastards in the galaxy. No way was he going to lose to this ET sack of... Corks reeled, as punch after punch rocked him back on his heels. Stop! I yield! The once proud warrior begged, but Ramirez wasn't finished. He grabbed the tottering alien, hooked an arm around its neck, and with a roar of effort, heaved the massive bulk up and over in a thunderous suplex slam. Corks hit the deck like a meteor strike, the impact actually denting the armored plates. The human warrior stood over his fallen foe, breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. "Welcome to Earth, asshole," he growled. Around them, the human spectators, who had gathered to watch the fight, burst into raucous cheers. Ramirez's fellow Marines rushed forward to clap him on the back and raise his arm in victory. "Hell yeah! Humanity fuck yeah!" they chanted. In the crowd, a blue-skinned alien with an elongated cranium and wearing University of Zagon faculty robes watched in stunned amazement. Professor Krill had thought he understood humans, had studied their physiology and culture, but to see it in action like this, incredible, Carwell muttered to himself. The sheer tenacity, the indomitable will. No wonder the Terrans had become such a force to be reckoned with in the galactic community. I must learn more about how they train their warriors. As if on cue, Ramirez detached himself from the celebratory mob and strode over to the alien academic. He stuck out a hand. "Sergeant John Ramirez, couldn't help but notice you watching. See something you like?" "Professor." Carwell gulped and took the offered hand, wincing at the human's crushing grip. "I am Professor Kryll Craze. I teach xenobiology at the university. Forgive me, Sergeant, but I was just astounded by your martial prowess. How did you possibly overcome a foe with such a huge physical advantage?" Ramirez grinned, a slash of white teeth in his battle-scarred face. "Training, Professor, endless training. We humans like to fight smarter, not just harder. Helps level the playing field against the bigger uglies out there." "Fascinating. You must tell me more. Perhaps we could discuss this in depth at the university. I'm sure my students would be enthralled to hear about human combat techniques from an expert." "Sure thing, Professor. Always happy to talk shop. Lead the way." As the two walked off, Ramirez couldn't help but chuckle under his breath. Wait until this Xeno egghead got a load of his wife, Valeria. She'd wipe the floor with corks without even breaking a sweat. Now there was a woman who was the living embodiment of humanity fuck yeah. But that was a story for another time. Today was for basking in a well-earned victory. Ramirez cracked his knuckles again. Damn, that had felt good. Sure, he'd have some new scars after the medics patched him up, but it was worth it. "All in a day's work," he muttered with a smirk. "All in a day's work." The University of Zagon's lecture hall was packed to the rafters. A sea of eager alien faces from a dozen different species. All of them had come to hear Sergeant Ramirez speak about human combat prowess. Professor Craze had wasted no time in arranging this special seminar, and the excitement was palpable. Humans were still relatively new on the galactic scene, but their reputation as fierce warriors was already legendary. Ramirez strode onto the stage in his crisp marine dress uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. He looked every inch the conquering hero, and a hushed awe fell over the assembled crowd. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice strong and clear. "I'm here to talk to you about what makes human fighters so special. But before I do that, let me make one thing perfectly clear." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room, seeming to lock eyes with every alien present. "We don't start fights, but we damn sure finish them. We humans are a peaceful species at heart. We'd much rather make friends than enemies, but threaten our world, our way of life, our loved ones, and you'll see a side of us you won't like. A side that will not stop, will not surrender until the job is done. That's a promise." You could have heard a pin drop in the lecture hall. Every Xeno was hanging on Ramirez's every word. Now, with that out of the way, the sergeant continued, let's talk about how we humans train to be the biggest, baddest mothers in the galaxy. It starts with our mindset. For the next 2 hours, Ramirez held the audience in thrall as he delved into the secrets of human combat training. He spoke of the grueling physical conditioning, the endless drills, the psychological fortitude required. He waxed poetic about the ancient martial arts lineages that had been passed down for generations, honed on Earth's battlefields and perfected for the challenges of the wider cosmos. Through it all, a central theme emerged: the sheer, bloody-minded stubbornness, the absolute refusal to quit. That was the core of the human warrior spirit. No matter the odds, no matter the opposition, humanity would always find a way to prevail. The assembled aliens listened in rapt attention, scribbling furious notes and whispering excitedly to each other. Many were already imagining ways to incorporate human training methods into their own militaries. Professor Craze watched from the front row, his large eyes wide with wonder. The implications of what Ramirez was saying were staggering. If even a fraction of this knowledge could be adapted for other species, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy. As the lecture wound to a close, Ramirez fixed the crowd with a steely gaze. Remember this, all of you. We humans are not to be trifled with. We come in peace, but we're prepared for war. And if it comes to war, we will not lose. Humanity does not know how to lose. He let that sink in for a moment, then cracked a sudden grin. But hey, let's hope it never comes to that, right? I'd much rather buy you all around a drink and swap stories. First one's on me. The tension broken. The lecture hall erupted in applause and cheers. Aliens of all stripes surged forward to shake Ramirez's hand and clap him on the back. Professor Craze managed to push his way through the throng. Sergeant, that was illuminating. Truly, I cannot thank you enough. Ramirez waved off the praise. Just doing my part to spread a little interspecies understanding, Professor. If folks out here can appreciate what humanity brings to the table, maybe we can all get along a little better. Indeed, I have much to ponder. But I believe you mentioned something about drinks? The Marine laughed and threw a companionable arm around the academic's shoulders. That I did, Prof, that I did. Hope you can hold your liquor, because I'm buying for the whole house tonight. As the two new friends made their way out of the lecture hall and into the bustling alien metropolis, Ramirez couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. This was what it was all about. Not just being the biggest badass in the room, but building bridges, forging bonds with other species, showing the galaxy what humanity was really made of. And if some Xeno scumbag was spoiling for a fight along the way, well, that was just a bonus. All in a day's work for a human soldier, all in a day's work. The dingy spaceport bar was a riot of noise and color, packed with aliens of every shape and size. Ramirez and Professor Craze sat at a corner table, nursing drinks and swapping stories. The Marine was on his 5th whiskey, but showed no signs of slowing down. Craze, on the other hand, was looking distinctly green around the gills after just 2 shots of the human liquor. And then I said, I wrecked him. Damn near killed him. Ramirez delivered the punchline of a particularly ribald joke, slapping the table and grinning. Craze tittered nervously, not entirely sure he understood the humor, but not wanting to appear rude. Ah, yes, a very amusing, Sergeant. You humans have such a colorful way with language. Ramirez shrugged, tossing back another shot. What can I say, Prof? When you spend as much time knee-deep in the shit as we do, you learn to find the funny where you can. He was about to launch into another anecdote when a commotion at the bar caught his attention. A group of burly, reptilian aliens were harassing the bartender, a slender, insectoid female. Come on, sweetheart. One of the Lorgans slurred, leaning over the bar and leering. Why don't you come back to our ship and we'll show you a real good time? The bartender chittered something in her native language, antennae quivering with distress as she tried to pull away, but the alien grabbed her wrist, his claws digging in. Ramirez was out of his seat and moving before Craze even registered what was happening. The Marine crossed the room in a few long strides, his face set in a grim mask. "Hey, assholes," he barked, tapping the reptilian on the shoulder. "The lady's not interested. Why don't you and your pals fuck off before things get ugly?" The alien whirled, hissing in anger. Up close, Ramirez could see he was even bigger than he'd first appeared, all coiled muscle and armored scales. "Piss off, human," he spat. "This doesn't concern you." Ramirez didn't blink. "See, that's where you're wrong, pal. I'm making it my concern now. You've got two choices. Walk away or get put down." The reptilian threw back his head and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. His cronies chuckled along with him. "You've got a quad, human, I'll give you that," he sneered. "But there's 4 of us and only 1 of you. So how about you walk away before we make you a smear on the floor?" A slow, dangerous smile spread across Ramirez's face. "Funny. I was about to say the same to you." What happened next was almost too fast for Craze to follow. Ramirez moved like a blur, seizing a bottle off a nearby table and smashing it across the lead reptilian's face. The alien howled, staggering back, blood and liquor spraying. The other 3 surged forward with roars of rage, but Ramirez was already in motion. He ducked a wild swing, then came up with a devastating uppercut that snapped the second alien's head back and sent him crashing to the floor. The third managed to land a glancing blow on the Marine's ribs, but Ramirez just grunted and returned the favor with a bone-crunching left hook. Xeno teeth went flying, and the brute dropped like a sack of rocks. The last alien, seeing his comrades so swiftly dispatched, turned to run. He made it 2 steps before Ramirez caught him by the back of the neck and slammed his face down on the bar once, twice, 3 times, until he went limp. In the sudden, shocked silence that followed, Ramirez calmly turned to the stunned bartender and handed her a credit chit for the damages. "Here, honey," he said, "and get yourself something nice. You deserve it after putting up with these pricks." The insectoid female trilled something that sounded very much like gratitude, her compound eyes shining. Ramirez just nodded, then turned and strode back to his table like nothing had happened. Craze gaped at him, mandibles clicking in astonishment. "Sergeant, that was... how did you?" Ramirez dropped back into his seat with a grunt, picking up his drink. "Like I said, Prof, we finish fights, and we stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. This is what we do." He drained his glass, then fixed the alien academic with a piercing stare. "Humanity, fuck yeah. Remember that, KRYLL. Remember it well." And Craze knew, with a sudden, unshakable certainty, that he would remember this moment, this man, for the rest of his days. The human who had shown him, in the most visceral way possible, what it truly meant to be a warrior of Earth. What it meant to live and breathe the creed of humanity. Fuck yeah. It was a lesson he would never forget, and one he would strive to pass on to his own people, in the hopes that they might one day stand as proud and as strong as the humans they now called allies. For in this vast, dangerous galaxy, that was the only way to survive. The human way, the way of the warrior. The next day, Ramirez and Craze were summoned to the office of the university's dean, a severe-looking Avan alien named Waltar CRE. The Marine had a pretty good idea what this was about, but he kept his expression neutral as they were ushered into the spacious, well-appointed room. Dean CRE perched behind his desk. His feathered crest flared in agitation. "Sergeant Ramirez," he began without preamble, his voice a harsh squawk, "I have received some disturbing reports about your conduct last night. Brawling in a public establishment, assaulting for Lorgan nationals. What do you have to say for yourself?" Ramirez met the dean's glare without flinching. "With respect, sir. Those nationals were harassing a female employee. I gave them the chance to walk away. They chose poorly." CRE clacked in disapproval. "Be that as it may, Sergeant, you are a guest on Zagon. We have laws and protocols for dealing with such situations. You cannot simply take matters into your own hands." Craze, who had been fidgeting nervously beside Ramirez, suddenly spoke up. "If I may interject, while the sergeant's methods may have been somewhat unorthodox, I believe his intentions were noble. He acted in defense of an innocent. Surely that counts for something? The dean swiveled his head to fix the professor with a beady stare. Professor Craze, I expected better from you. Defending this ruffian. Have you forgotten your position? Your responsibilities to this institution? Craze drew himself up to his full height, his normally timid demeanor falling away. My responsibility, Dean CRE, is to the pursuit of knowledge. And what I have learned from Sergeant Ramirez is that sometimes knowledge must be backed by action, by the courage to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost. He gestured to Ramirez, who was watching him with a mixture of surprise and respect. This man, this human, he embodies the very spirit of his people, a spirit of strength, of honor, of unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. If we could all learn from his example, perhaps the galaxy would be a better place. There was a long, tense silence. Ramirez and Craze held their breath, waiting for the dean's response. Finally, CRE let out a long, rattling sigh. Very well. In light of Professor Craze's endorsement, and taking into account the mitigating circumstances, I am willing to overlook this incident. But be warned, Sergeant, any further disruptions and I will have no choice but to take official action. Am I clear? Ramirez snapped to attention, his hand coming up in a crisp salute. Crystal, sir. It won't happen again. The dean waved a dismissive wing. See that it doesn't. Now, if there's nothing else. Actually, sir, there is one more thing, Ramirez said. I'd like to request permission to give a demonstration of human hand-to-hand combat techniques for the edification of the student body. A demonstration? Tari's eyes narrowed. Yes, sir. I believe it would be a valuable learning experience. A chance to show what humanity is capable of, beyond just the occasional misunderstanding. The dean considered for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well, I will allow it, but I will be watching closely, Sergeant. Do not make me regret this decision. Ramirez grinned. Wouldn't dream of it, sir. You won't be disappointed. As they left the dean's office, Craze turned to the Marine, his eyes wide with wonder. Sergeant, I don't know what to say. The way you stood up to him, the way you turned the situation around. It was masterful. Ramirez clapped the professor on the shoulder. Couldn't have done it without you, Carewell. The way you spoke up, put yourself on the line like that. That took guts. I'm proud of you. Craze ducked his head, embarrassed. But please, I only did what I thought was right, what you would have done. Exactly. You're learning, my friend. Stick with me, and you'll be a full-fledged badass in no time. The professor chuckled. I think I still have a way to go before I reach your level, Sergeant, but I am eager to learn more, especially about this combat demonstration you have planned. Ramirez's grin turned wicked. Oh, you're going to love it, Professor, trust me. It's going to be a show they'll never forget. Time to give these Xenos a real taste of what humanity, fuck yeah, is all about. And with that, the two friends set off, ready to take on whatever challenges the galaxy saw fit to throw their way. Together, they would show the universe the true strength of the human spirit. The strength to fight, to endure, to overcome. The strength to stand tall and proud, no matter the odds. The strength of humanity. Fuck yeah. The university's main athletic field was packed to capacity. A sea of alien faces stretching as far as the eye could see. News of Sergeant Ramirez's impending combat demonstration had spread like wildfire, and it seemed like every student and faculty member on Zagon had turned out to witness it firsthand. Ramirez stood in the center of the field, clad in a simple black GI, his feet bare on the grass. He looked calm and centered, his eyes closed as he breathed deeply. Professor Craze fidgeted nearby, his nervousness palpable. Are you sure about this, Sergeant? He asked for the dozenth time. Facing off against the university's top martial arts students? Seems risky. Ramirez cracked one eye open, a smirk tugging at his lips. Relax, Prof, this is what I do. Besides, you think I'm going to let a bunch of Xeno kids show me up? Not fucking likely. As if on cue, a group of students began filing onto the field, each one representing a different alien species. There were burly Krogan, lithe Capley, even a couple of hulking Dorian. All of them looked fit, focused, and ready for battle. The leader of the group, a wiry reptilian with cold, slitted eyes, stepped forward and bowed to Ramirez. "I am Korak, master of the Saren fist style," he hissed. "We have come to test your skills, human, to see if you are worthy of the praise heaped upon you." Ramirez returned the bow, a glint of challenge in his eyes. "Bring it on, Scaly. Let's see what you've got." With a snarling war cry, Korak lunged, his clawed hands blurring in a flurry of strikes. Ramirez weaved and dodged, his movements fluid and graceful, always just a hair's breadth ahead of his opponent's attacks. The crowd watched in breathless silence as the two warriors danced across the grass, trading blows with lightning speed and precision. Korak was good, his technique flawless, but Ramirez was better. He seemed to anticipate every move, every feint, countering with devastating efficiency. And then, in a blur of motion, it was over. Ramirez caught Korak's wrist in an iron grip, twisted, and sent the reptilian flying with a perfectly executed hip throw. Korak hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him, and lay there groaning. Ramirez stood over him, not even breathing hard. "Next," he said simply. One by one, the other students stepped up to challenge him, and one by one, they fell. Ramirez was a machine, unstoppable, taking on all comers with a grin on his face and a quip on his lips. "2 for 2, big guy. You telegraph worse than a cheap comm unit." "Ooh, nice try, Crippy. Almost had me there. Almost. Come on, put your back into it. My grandma hits harder than you." In the stands, Professor Craze watched in awe, his heart swelling with pride. This was what he had been trying to tell the dean, what he had seen in Ramirez from the start. This indomitable spirit, this unbreakable will. This was the essence of humanity. And then, as the last challenger limped off the field in defeat, Ramirez turned to face the crowd, his GI torn, his knuckles bruised and bloody, but his eyes were alive with fierce, unbridled joy. "Listen up, everyone," he called out, his voice ringing across the suddenly silent field. "This is what it means to be human, to stand tall, to fight with everything you've got, no matter the odds. We don't back down, we don't give in, and we sure as hell don't lose." He thrust a fist in the air, his voice rising to a triumphant roar. "Humanity, fuck yeah." The crowd erupted, a deafening cacophony of cheers and applause. Aliens of every species leapt to their feet, chanting Ramirez's name, their differences forgotten in the face of this shared moment of pure, unadulterated badassery. And there, in the center of it all, stood Sergeant John Ramirez, bloodied but unbowed, a warrior born, a shining exemplar of all that made humanity great. He had come to Zagon to teach, to share the wisdom and strength of his people, but in doing so, he had learned something too, that the spirit of humanity, fuck yeah, was not just the province of humans. It was a fire that could burn in the heart of any being, any species, if only they had the courage to embrace it, to stand up, to fight back, to never ever give up. That was the lesson of this day, and it was one that Ramirez knew he would carry with him always, a reminder of what he fought for, what he believed in, a reminder of the unstoppable power of the human spirit. In the days following Ramirez's triumphant combat demonstration, a change seemed to come over the University of Zagon. Aliens of all species walked the halls with a new spring in their step, a new fire in their eyes. It was as if the sergeant's indomitable spirit had infected them all, awakening something long dormant within their souls. Professor Craze saw it in his students, in the way they attacked their studies with renewed vigor and determination. He heard it in the buzz of conversation on the quad. Snippets of humanity, fuck yeah. And, did you see the way Ramirez took down those Dorians? Floating on the breeze. It was a heady feeling, this sense of possibility, of potential, and at the center of it all, the calm eye of the storm, was Sergeant John Ramirez himself. The Marine had become something of a celebrity on campus, his mere presence enough to send a thrill through any crowd. Aliens clamored for his attention, for the chance to train with him, to learn at the feet of the master. And Ramirez, to his credit, took it all in stride. He met every challenge with a grin and a quip, always ready with a word of encouragement or a sharp rebuke, as needed. Under his tutelage, the university's martial arts program flourished, producing a new generation of warriors as tough and uncompromising as any in the galaxy. But even as he reveled in his newfound fame, Ramirez never lost sight of his true mission. He was here to spread the gospel of humanity, to show these aliens what his people were really made of. And he knew that the best way to do that was by example. So, when the call came in from a nearby colony, a desperate plea for help against a marauding band of space pirates, Ramirez didn't hesitate. He gathered a small team of his most promising students and set out to answer the call. It was a fierce battle, the pirates well-armed and ruthless, but Ramirez and his team were more than a match for them. They fought with the courage and skill of true warriors, the spirit of humanity, burning bright in their hearts. In the end, the colony was saved, the pirates driven off or captured. And as the grateful colonists gathered around to thank their saviors, Ramirez took a moment to address his students. "You all did good today," he said, his voice rough with pride. "Damn good. You showed these people what it means to stand up for what's right, to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. That's the human way. And now it's your way too." The students beamed, their chests swelling with the praise. They had learned so much from their sergeant, not just about combat, but about life, about what it meant to be a warrior in the truest sense of the word. And as they made their way back to the university, battered but victorious, they knew that they would carry these lessons with them always, that they would continue to spread the message of humanity, to fight the good fight, no matter where the winds of fate might take them. For they were more than just students now, more than just aliens. They were warriors. They were defenders. They were the proud inheritors of the legacy of humanity, and they would never, ever back down. As the ship touched down on the university landing pad, Professor Craze was there to greet them, his eyes shining with tears of joy and relief. He embraced Ramirez fiercely, babbling his thanks and praise, but the sergeant just smiled and clapped him on the shoulder. "No need for all that, Professor. We were just doing our job, just being human." And with that, he strode off into the waiting crowd, ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. For he was Sergeant John Ramirez, the living embodiment of humanity, and he would never stop fighting, never stop teaching, never stop being the badass he was born to be. That was just the human way. Years later, long after the legend of Sergeant John Ramirez had passed into the annals of galactic history, a young Dorian warrior stood before a class of eager recruits, ready to begin their training in the ways of combat. "Listen up, maggots," he barked, his voice ringing with the same fierce authority that had once been the hallmark of his mentor. "You're here because you want to be the best, the toughest, the most uncompromising warriors in the galaxy. Well, let me tell you something." He paused, his eyes blazing with the fire of conviction. "You've got a long fucking way to go. But if you stick with it, if you push yourself to the limit and beyond, if you never ever give up, then maybe, just maybe, you'll earn the right to call yourselves true warriors." He thrust a fist in the air, his voice rising to a triumphant roar. "Humanity, And with that, the training began. A new generation of warriors ready to take up the mantle of humanity, and carry it forward into legend. For that was the legacy of Sergeant John Ramirez, a legacy of courage, of honor, of unbreakable will, a legacy of humanity,